Hey everybody, Amy here again. Welcome back to our sniff final edition of this special every day of the week podcast series, all about looking to refine and renew what it is you're doing in your yoga business, because we are in unprecedented times. And I really believe that once that, if we're well and we've got somewhere beautiful to live, and we've got a job that can at least in some way modify itself to accommodate the new world order, we're deeply blessed and have the opportunity to take advantage of these strange times. So we're talking all things, what could we be doing to make the most of this opportunity all week long? And I'm delighted to introduce you to my guest for today, Emily Perry. Emily Perry, we're having a little bit of internet situation, so we'll see how we go. Welcome.
Oh, okay.
Did you lose me completely?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're totally welcome.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Enough.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here.
Can we start by you doing your own intro? Give us your bio, where you are, what you do. Tell us that bit.
So I'm Emily Perry. I'm based here in California. Well, a little more grounded right now. And I'm a yoga teacher. I'm at RYT 500. I have a yoga school, a 200-hour to 300-hour yoga school. I'm also a licensed acupuncturist. I host a podcast called the Rock Your Purpose podcast. And I also film yoga classes for Yoga Anytime. So I'm on there and building my own platform, and just in all the places. I used to, before special times, be at festivals and lots of conferences and stuff like that, and retreats all around the world. So I work with yoga students, but also I do some coaching work and integrate a lot of the energy work and transformational coaching into the work I do. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. I have a couple kids here, husband, Labrador.
Amazing. You've made it. You've made it. Where can we find you? Tell us your Insta and your website.
So my website's emilyperry.com. I finally got my hands on that after 10 years of trying. And my Instagram is at emilyperry.co, or at Rock Your Purpose is another one. So that's the best way to find me. And I also have a online group in Facebook, a little online community called the Rock Your Purpose community. So we're hanging out over there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I will come back to that. I'm making a mental note, but I just want to know the story about getting your own domain name. Did you have to pay heaps of money? Did you have to go into a bidding scenario? Who had it beforehand? What's the story?
So there's this Irish actor named Emily Perry, and she was like in her 90s, I think, when she passed away. And then somebody bought it somehow, and it was sitting there idle for like 5 or 6 years. And then by, cosmic intervention, I was looking on there and it was up for auction. And I won it in auction. Excuse me, for only like $160. I was like, wow. Yeah. So I have like emilyperry.co. I have Emily Perry Yoga. I have Emily-Perry. Like every other.
But you finally got your own, and that's what counts.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
my name.
Well done. Now, I want to actually come back to what you beautifully segued us to, which was, of course, what is this Rock Your Purpose thing? What does that mean? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So my work, I think over the last, 10 years has really, as I've studied yoga and, the 4 arthas of yoga and dharma, and really stepping into purpose and the idea of purpose, and really standing in like the work that we're called to do. really seeing in my students how as I get deeper into yoga, how that starts to uncover itself. It really became sort of the movement that really started calling to me. Like I really wanted to create a movement, and I felt called to create a movement, I should say. And that's really what came up for me. So it was like this idea of rocking your purpose, where you really, stand in the essence of who you are and rock your particular purpose, not someone else's dharma, And so, creating experiences for people and trainings and retreats and all kinds of different things like the podcast to support people in, rocking their purpose and living their best life. And so it's one of my hashtags I use a lot, rock your purpose. Yeah.
One of the things that, I've read a bunch of those Dharma books and figuring out your Dharma and what does that look like and how do you pursue it. And for me, it feels very pressured. Like, I just don't know. I feel like, oh God, what if I get it wrong? Or what if I pick the wrong thing? And am I allowed to change my mind? And I remember not that long ago, well, back in the day when you could sit with people in person, sitting with Harish, Christopher Wallace in the thing.
Yeah.
And he said something about, what's the one thing? What's your purpose? What's your one? And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm that type of a, can you have per pie? I don't think.
Well, I think your purpose changes as you grow.
Does it?
So the analogy I like to give is actually like, so I studied a lot of indigenous American cultures. So like what we call Native American cultures. And I actually lived on a reservation in college and stayed with an herbalist with Oneida Nation. And one of the things I noticed is like people's names in some of those native cultures, indigenous cultures, people's names would change as they grow, right? You would change your name or people call you something different, right? And I think our purpose and our dharma changes. Now it might have a thread that gets woven through everything. And when you get to midlife or so, I think you start to see, oh, that's the thread. I think it takes us a long time though to start to really see the thread that gets woven, like a sutra, right? The sutra that gets woven through is sort of like the heart of our dharma, but I think the way it shows up in our life will change as we age and as we grow and evolve. And so I think sometimes it can be hard to see until you get into, like, if you're in your 20s, it's a lot harder to see than when you're like 38 or 48,
I'll let you know on the 48 mark. So I'm guessing that this is given your podcast and your community that you invited folks into before, this is an important part of the work that you do. How do you support people to figure out what their purpose is? And is it a common thing? I'm not seeking to be validated. I'm genuinely curious.
No, it is
it's
really
like,
common.
I don't know, common.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of it's like really finding the things that light you up. And I mean, there's a couple ideas with purpose. It's like, how can we be of service?
Yeah.
In a way that feels for us like we're like, on fire, so to speak, where we feel lit up by it. Mm-hmm. And we're in service. And also it's often a zone of genius for us, meaning like it's work that we do. And when we do the work, we feel like we're not working. We're often feeling like we're in flow state, or we lose track of time, or it's like we feel so filled our well feels so filled after that. It doesn't matter like all the things that we had to do to get that done, because we feel like it's really fulfilling something within us that needs to be born,
Do you think that people can have the meditation that I do every morning and posing a series of questions, and one is, what is my purpose? And I find that even just day to day, it's generally the same, but it sort of has a slightly different feeling tone to it. Do you think that people can have concurrent things that they're compelled to do well? I'm thinking about, if you're a parent, then parenting is part of your dharma. But if you also have, say, for example, a yoga teacher, or you want to start your own yoga school, and that's how, or you want to even give back to a woman that I support here. She does a whole lot of stuff building wells in, remote Cambodian communities, whatever. Can you have more than one? Is it the thread that ties them all together that you would say is the purpose, or the phenomena that's the purpose?
I would say it's more of the thread, I mean, when you really get to the heart of it, it's sort of like it's that thread that gets woven through everything. So the manifestations of it, like,
Yes, yes,
so
yes.
one of my clients, for example, is in real estate.
Mhm.
But what he's realizing is like his dharma is like to help people really find their like a sense of home. And when he looks back at his life before, like that's what he's always done in some way.
Yeah.
Either like baking for some community, like, so like it's been this thread. So that's one way to look at it. And then those external manifestations often help us uncover, oh, this is what like the heart of it is. And one way to get to it can also be like getting to your why. I call it your highest why.
Mm.
So like really going back to like, why do I feel so compelled to do this? Why does it make me feel lit up? Like starting to uncover and keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into finding like that highest why. So the why behind it all. And so when you really connect to a why strongly, sometimes it doesn't even matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like fulfilling the why, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And I love that unpacking process, or that sort of almost like excavating, isn't it? Getting deeper into it.
Yeah.
It does make me think, when I first entered into the coaching industry and I hired my first coach, and the packet that I was given to fill out all my stuff to get started, I'd never hired a coach before. And one of the questions was, what's your why? And I thought, I don't even know what that means. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I
one of
know.
those,
I know.
one of those coaching things. It's like, yes, your why, but at the,
Mhm.
however long ago.
Well,
What?
and a why can be, I mean, that's the thing, is like sometimes our why changes too.
Okay, okay.
So as we evolve as people, so like sometimes with yoga teachers, for example, like our why can be, okay, I want to be able to pay my mortgage or rent.
Yep.
I want to have enough money for a vacation where I'm not working. you
Yeah.
know and like that's the why, like developing the work, and then you get to that place, and then a new why reveals itself or opens itself up. So it's sort of like, as you develop your business or as you develop your work in general, however that looks,
Mhm.
the deeper, higher why kind of starts to, it's almost like a lotus flower unfurling itself. It starts to really kind of reveal the depth of what's there.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I really feel that for some people, this opportunity to um, withdraw and slow down and turn in is going to stir up a feeling of dissatisfaction, or a realization that they've veered off course somehow. It's
Mm-hmm.
not what
Mm-hmm.
I signed up for. Whether it's their teaching or their life or their marriage or whatever,
Yeah.
where they live. This is not what now that I have a moment to stop and look, this is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And in a way that may be sort of destabilizing, I'm feeling like it's important to approach these insights with compassion. But I'd love to know what you would say to people who are watching or listening, who are starting to think, hang on, this is not where I was supposed to be now. How do you sit with that, or what do you do with it?
Oh yeah, I mean that's so common too. I think
Mm.
a lot of people have that time where they wake up and they're like, "How did I get here?" It's like the Talking Head song, and the days
Yes.
go. Like, how did I get here? Like, is this my beautiful house? Like, and is this my yoga business?
Is this my Instagram account?
Like, and it's common. And I think when we go through crises like we're in right now, for a
Yep.
lot of people, it's illuminating, right?
Yep.
So it's an opportunity. And so the first step in that, I think, is actually to give space. So
Mm.
do your practices, like do yoga, meditate, sit, and really sit with the uncomfortability and this isn't the right fit. So what if I'm going to shed this box or shed this shell or like let go of this layer, like, okay, what am I going to open up to? So giving space for that, and then starting to ask questions of like, what lights you up or what sets you on fire, so to speak, right? So really kind of getting into that kind of, what you burn for, as my friend Shawnee says. She
Mhm.
has this organization called Yoga for All Movement, which is all based on this, what do you burn for? And so getting, starting to ask those questions. And there's a transition that has to happen though, right? So it's sort of like giving ourselves that space to be in the in-between.
Yes.
is really important. And a lot of people don't want to give themselves that space. But
Yes.
we outgrow, I mean, that's the thing too, is like we outgrow our businesses in a lot of ways too, right? So the yoga I taught when I first started teaching, like
Come on, give us a
how,
best. Give us a
right? Like,
benchmark of how
I
bad it
mean,
was.
it was just, you know, it's just, now it doesn't fit so much. Like I was much more in the Ashtanga
Oh, okay.
Vinyasa,
Okay.
you know, and, and then I discovered Bhakti yoga, and now it's much more of this kind of different thread getting woven through my teaching. But like, you know, you look back and you're like, like I can't, it's like embarrassing. So, but you know, we have to give ourselves opportunity to evolve. And right now we're in a pressure cooker and I like to think of this time as like going through the eye of the needle, where a lot of us are having to leave behind like the old work that we were doing, or our old vision of what it would look like, or the way, you know, instead of going to a studio, we're, you know, Zooming and being open to what's on the other side of going through that eye of the needle. Excuse me. So if we're leaving behind a lot, then we have to have that time where we're going to be open to what wants to be seen, what wants to come through us. And so that might mean really getting more intuitive, or listening to our inner voice and like, okay, how can I serve right now? Like, how do people actually really need me right now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in a way that feels good to me, so that I can, you know, create the business that I want to create, you know? So I think a lot of us have had a really scramble, you know?
Yep. Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know,
I've
yeah,
had
yeah.
teachers say that they haven't worked, you know, when lockdowns first happened, they hadn't worked that hard for years trying to mash it all together and figure it out. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, or we're like Zooming with talking to our studio, trying to help them get online. And, you know, I created a series of retreats called the Soul Temple retreats that we created because people really wanted like this kind of intimate experience, but not like just like a live stream Facebook class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so just kind of getting creative.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, something in what you're saying is that in the idea of, again, of the eye of the needle, there's been a whole lot of hustle and fail forward and figure it
Mm-hmm.
out as you go and do the best you can, busyness.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're sort of now coming back into this, you know, there's the kumbhaka of it, of sort of like, okay, I did that and it's not sustainable, or I don't like it as much, or I really like it and now I feel
Mm-hmm.
bad because I don't want to go back to the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
As the insights are emerging, I think that what I'm hearing you say is that it's important to be in that receiving energy, to not force the answer, but
Mm-hmm.
pause in the question.
Yeah, and honor that. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, yoga is, you know, the second sutra is like the second book of the second pada of the Yoga Sutra is like 2.1. It's like, what is Kriya Yoga? It's the path of action, you know, and we can't know what we like or don't like unless we actually do it. For the most part, right? So, I mean, this happens in yoga teaching. I mean, how many people have taught yoga classes where um, it's like, maybe I'm not the fit for gentle yoga, you know, or chair yoga, or, you know, but you don't know that you're not the fit to teach, you know, chair yoga unless you actually try it sometimes, right? And so I
Totally.
think it's a great time for experimenting, like, oh, maybe I love Zooming and one-on-one privates. And it's like and go with it, you know, or maybe you realize, you know, I don't translate well on video energetically, and maybe maybe I can do something different. Maybe I can do audio practices for people, and then
Mm.
when we meet up again, I can create more intimate circles with people. I mean, so you can get creative, but I think often like we don't know what we don't like until we actually do it.
Or what we like, I really love the idea of being this very, very cool, very, very cool yoga teacher who just has like awesome playlists. I can't teach with music playing to save my life. Like, I just can't. I can't. I, 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 I love it when I'm in a class. I remember being in, anyway, I won't boring whatever stories, but just you know, you know, when you've got like people making music, they're live and it's just for not, I
Mm-hmm.
can't teach. I want to be that cool, but it's just not, that is not me. I gave it a good try until I finally
Yeah.
surrendered. Amy, this is not for you. You're not
And
that.
then for us, so for some of us who are used to playing with a playlist or with live musicians, to now not be able to use music, because,
Ha.
right?
The
Unless they're
nerds
like,
are winning.
and then having people Zoom, I know, and then trying to have people Zoom in music while you're teaching, it's like having the two audio streams in Zoom doesn't really
Yes.
work very well. So that's been a challenge. So it's
Whole thing.
been, yeah. So like, if even for me, like I've always taught with music ever since even like the beginning times. And so, right. When I was a yoga baby. So yeah, my daughter's drinking water. So yeah, so I think it's good to, stretch ourselves though in that way and try something different and to, experiment. And like, sometimes you don't know, like, well, maybe I could have just taught without music and really enjoyed that. And been like, oh, maybe going forward when the studio opens again, I'm going to not use music or whatnot.
I also think that people are far more forgiving right now. So it's a really beautiful time to try, and if you fuck it up, it's okay. People aren't going to. What did someone messaged me on Instagram the other day? I won't name names, but she said it was her first Zoom class and everybody had arrived and she should quickly go to the bathroom before she started the class.
Yeah.
And she still had her AirPods with the microphone on.
So they could hear the whole thing.
She said just before it was too late, she remembered.
That's great.
Like, it's okay. Actually, it's bringing in the humanity. Like, man.
Yeah. And people don't want perfection. I mean, we had a conversation earlier where if it's overproduced, people don't resonate.
It's unrelatable.
It's unrelatable, and people they want visceral. They want the feeling, they want the breath, they want to like be in it with people. And this is a conversation I've actually had with, the producers at Yoga Anytime, because they're like, you're practicing with people. You're not having a model practice. You are doing it because people want to be in it with you.
Yes.
And I think having that, like those moments, those like awkward moments, but like people are in it with you and they feel like you're in it together, as opposed to you being on some pedestal telling people what to do. And it makes it more of a community experience as opposed to, anything they could find anywhere on any YouTube,
Yeah. Impersonal. Yeah. I'm curious about your own journey, and did you have, in deciding to do what you're doing and to shed things that didn't light you up as much, did you ever have moments of pause where you were fearful or you were second guessing yourself? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Wow. So I'm a fire. Okay. I have an Aquarius sun. So some of you might know astrology, Aquarian sun, but I have an Aries moon and Leo rising. And I'm very, my Mars is in my 10th house. I'm very like if I set my eyes on something, like that's what I'm going to do. It's more of my kind of personality. I have had moments where I've hit sort of glass ceilings at studios where, and then I had to leave. So I've had those kinds of moments where it was like, people are changing my copywriting or telling me how to teach in a way that wasn't authentic to me. It was to make them sound like them. I've had that happen a few times. And so those moments definitely have been, I had to take a break from teaching because I had to find a new studio or whatever. So those moments were kind of challenging. And then I never really planned this, I had a vision. My vision was I was in acupuncture school. I was going to have a clinic in LA. I was going to build a building. I was going to have a clinic, and I was going to have people working, like all kinds of doctors working underneath me. And I was going to have this whole thing, and then, I ended up having a baby, and that changed everything. And then 2008 hit. So I'm kind of aging myself here, but 2008 hit and the economy changed. And, things just sort of shifted. And then, as the yoga teaching just took over. And I think sometimes when you follow something that you really love and you thrive at, it starts to like that Shakti, that prana starts to just grow like a river. And I just sort of followed it, to be honest. I never really planned on, doing what I'm doing right now. But there have been moments of, of, trying to figure out which direction do I want to go in, do I want to create this kind of business and be this person?
Yeah.
Do I want to be the anatomy expert?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I want to be the da 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 da? And so there's always been those kinds of questions of like, what kind of vibe do I want to have? What kind of vibe do I want to be in?
Yeah.
So that's kind of been more of like the nuance I've been in the last few years. I think it's sort of like taking a stand for what I want to create and know what it is.
And I really think that there's going to be a lot of people listening who are in that space and didn't perceive it as an opportunity until they've heard you talk about your own process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm conscious of time, but I just want to go back to one thing you mentioned, if that's okay, because I suspect you just said it in passing, but it's going to be liberating for so many people. You mentioned that you had to leave studios, you had to relinquish a relationship because you'd outgrown it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very common, but people don't identify it as that, because to do so, to stand in their power in that way, they would judge themselves as being egocentric or narcissistic or thinking that they're better than the student. But in fact, it's, when you described it, it was simply what I heard was a woman who recognized that she was no longer in alignment with that business or person or whatever, and was making a better choice for herself. But I suspect a lot of people stay in something even though they're at that point until it builds into resentment and something that can be.
Oh,
Do you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the resentment piece. Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of those things where, like, if you think about, if you really teach a lot of classes and it becomes your business, it also becomes a creative outlet, right? And there's a lot of creativity and it's like expressive and if you start to have a vision for what you want to create in a future in terms of like, okay, in the next, year, I want to have this immersion and like have this vision. And if that studio is not supporting that in some way, then to me, it's like, well, either we grow together, because if I grow, you grow, right? If you're if my classes grow, you make more money, but I think it gets to that point where, hold on, my mic is, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 second. Okay. I can't hear myself, but I'll just talk. So I think it gets to that point where, you have to make that choice. Like, either I want to create what I want to create and I have this vision I wanted to bring into being, and I'm going to have some partners on my team, or I need to find another space that will do that for me.
And if we come back to what you were saying before, it's not we don't need to judge ourselves about who am I to think I'm better than, or I shouldn't ask for what I want because people will actually, it's about coming back to what you were sharing with us before, realigning to our own purpose and understanding that in order to do that, a shedding with gratitude is required. Yeah.
And it's at the same time, like, I mean, so where I live in California, we've had yoga here for a really long time. So Iyengar's, one of his main students, Kofi Busia, is here. I mean, so we've had
Indra Devi
yoga here for a long time.
Yeah.
We have big classes. So like, at this one studio in particular, for example, my classes were anywhere from 30, 55. I think the max we could fit 55, but some studios in San Francisco here, we can get a couple hundred people,
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to you start to have a bit of a say, and if you have a vision for like what you want to create and the studio's not supporting it because they don't want attention taken away from them or what they want you to do, so there's sometimes there's politics involved in everything, and so it's sort of like, really, you have to stand in your truth. I think it's like, especially like, I think I got to a point where I hit that glass ceiling where I was like, either I'm going to teach what I want to teach or I'm not going to teach.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I'm either going to teach the way I want to teach or I'm not going to teach because it was too stifling, you know?
Yeah.
Now I didn't come from a method where like there's certain methods of yoga where they're like, this is your theme for the month. This is the way you talk. Like, this is, you know, I remember in the Anusara days, like it was very specific, the way you had to teach a class and, you know, all those things. And I didn't really come from that kind of method. So I always felt kind of rebellious in that way. Like that Aquarian part of me rebels against any kind of structure put upon me. So like, if you put me in a box, I'm like, where's the way out? You know, let's burn it down. So at the same time, I love partnering with studios though, you know, so it's like now I'm at a place where I partner with trainings with the studio where I am, and like we work together and what do we want to create? And it's like co-creative and it's exciting and like, you know, it's like we all help each other. Then like, you know, I don't teach certain types of classes. So it's like, okay, let's promote these people who teach these kinds of classes, and we'll have that yoga nidra teacher teaching our training, you know, so it's like, it's creative. We all rise up together. And I think, you know, if you can be in that kind of a studio setting, if you have a studio where you teach, where, I mean, that's where everyone grows. And then the students feel that. They feel like, wow, this place is thriving. Like there's so much energy and like, there's so much community. There's like support when I need support, you know? So, you know, people will feel that too. So
love that.
Yeah.
And I think for all of the freelancers, little freelancers like me that are listening in, you know, you can translate this kind of large studio culture to be other yoga teachers in your small town, or other allied practitioners, holistic practitioners in your small town. Like it can be different types of collaborations. I'm conscious of time and things. Tell us what's going on. Where can we get more you? Like, tell us the things.
So right now I have coming up, I have something called the Heart Medicine Masterclass. So this is a 6-week experience where we have, you know, breath work and meditation and, you know, some journaling prompts and some one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but live kind of coaching experiences in our Facebook group. So that's happening starting May 11th. So that's coming up. So we have this really great group coming together for that, you know, heart healing. We also do some energetic work like karmic cord cutting and some other stuff I've been trained in way back in the days. Yeah. So we're doing some of that work. So that's coming up. And then I have...
so that starts on Monday, May
11th. Yeah.
Tuesday for us. So that you get an extra day to get ready. Okay. So what do we find out about that? Because it sounds delicious.
So that's emilyperry.com/heartmedicine. And then I have, you know, a Soul Temple retreat coming up. So the Fire My Spirit Soul Temple retreat. So that's coming up on Sunday, Mother's Day in the US, May 10th. So it'll probably be Monday already if you're in Australia. But
we're at home. What are we doing?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful retreat series that's all based on this folk song that, you know, I used to hear a lot with when my kids were little. And so we did a 4-element series with my friend Agaya Terakor, who is a Kundalini teacher called at Divine Grit. And then I have a membership coming up. So it's called the Live Awake Collective. And you can just go to emilyperry.com and watch my Instagram for information on that, because it's not even live yet. It's coming soon. Yeah. So that's really exciting.
All the things. Tell us your Instagram again, so that while people are listening, they can also go start following you.
At emilyperry.co.
Folks, particularly if you are listening to this or watching this and you are a graduate of my Social Media Confidence for Yoga Teachers program, send Emily a voice DM. Say hello, say thank you. Tell her that she, you know, if it's true, I'm sure it was, that she was inspiring, but like she's also a real person and she'd love to get a message from you.
I would love to get a message. I love Instagram, and I'm in stories a lot, like all day long. So that's a great way to stay connected and all the things. And that's where a lot of my creativity comes out too. So I do all my graphics and stuff in there. And I really love creating a lot of prettiness, pretty in the gram. So I'm over there.
Okay, cool. Let me just take a quick picture, and then I can make sure that this is not going to be pretty, because it's just going to be taking a picture of my computer screen like this. But, you know, we have different brands, Emily. Thank you so much. What a perfect way to complete this series of conversations. Really coming back to this idea of purpose and how it is such a big thing, but also it's very, very immediate and in the moment, and little step by little step. Like you said, you never planned this thing. It's just, you just kept following the signs, and here you are.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think it's, yeah, being willing to do that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.